there, my name is Irene, and in this video we are going to see how we can have our model in place component geometry interacting with already existing geometry from our Revit project. So let's get to it. So for this example in particular, there is really one main use for this. And this is when we have details integrated to walls, floors, ceilings, right? Because anything else, you're probably going to be modeling the whole thing from scratch. But for example, let's say that I have this wall here and I wanted to have a fancy crown molding, or let's say that I want to have some niches in my wall. So what you don't want to do is model the whole wall as a model in place component, because in doing that, you're going to lose some of the parametric benefits that the wall comes with. So this is very, very important, because this is the other problem that I see people making, which is that once they discover that model in place component exists, they're like, everything is a model in place component. I'm not using walls, floors, ceilings anymore. And again, this is one of those things that while you are modeling, it might feel like this is a better way of doing things, but it's going to come to bite you in the ass when we get things such as construction documentation, schedules, that kind of stuff. So as much as possible, you should try to work with the things that Revit has already given you, and you will only exit into the realm of model in place component and whatnot when we want to do offshoots, where we want to do custom unique things. So let's start with the most common one, which is going to be niches. So if you want to do a wall niche, you cannot do it just editing the profile of the wall, because that is going to cut through the entirety of the wall. What I want to do is I want to take a little bite out of my wall. So the cool thing about Revit is that you can actually do it using model in place components, because your forms and your voids can interact with the rest of your Revit geometry. So let's say I'm going to come here and I'm going to set my work plane. I'm going to turn it on so you can see it. And I'm going to set my work plane. I'm going to pick let's say we want to put it on this wall here. I'm going to turn it on so you can see it. There's my work plane, right? So let's say that I'm going to do a void extrusion, right? So again, I'm going to keep it very simple, just a little rectangle here, there. And I'm going to say 5 for the time being. It doesn't matter, right? I can bring it here in a little bit. Let me put it there. I can see it better here. There you go. Half of the wall, right? So if I put this here, you may notice that it's giving me the orange. And in a previous video, I already mentioned that Revit is going to make your voids orange under 2 circumstances. Option 1, the void is not interacting with any geometry, and thus the void cannot exist, because a void is always an abstraction. Option 2, the void is interacting with a form, with a geometry, but Revit is not realizing. That's what's happening here. The problem is that you're going to notice that making this interaction could cause some issues. So here it has worked. It seems to be fine. And when I finish my model, it's going to tell me like, yeah, this is not a problem. But when it comes to editing categories and whatnot, these can cause some issues. So my recommendation is that, especially if you have geometry that interacts with other geometry in your project, you want to make sure that the categories match. So for example, I'm back on my model in place component. I can come here to my categories and I can say, you are supposed to be in the wall category. Okay. The interaction is going to be the same. That's not going to change, but now it's going to make a little bit more sense for Revit. Now, if you have ever asked yourself, okay, so what if I want to have a niche on this curve wall? It can be done. You just need to kind of like think things a little bit differently. So what I can do, let's get back here to our model in place component. And what I will do is I'm going to set my work plane to be the floor, level 1, right? Again, you can see that now we're modeling on the floor. I'm actually going to model here so it's a little bit easier. And what I can do is I'm going to create another void extrusion. And here's another cool thing. You can pick existing geometry. So I'm going to pick this guy. I'm going to pick that guy. And then I'm going to finish it up with maybe a line here, maybe a line there. And then I'm going to use my trim. And then I'm going to say yes. And then check it out. Now I need to pull this guy a little bit up so we can see it. And again, click outside. If it's orange, all you have to do is cut geometry from void, and there you have it. That's how you can cut a void on a curved object. You just kind of have to get smart about which work plane will allow you to do the thing that you want to do. And same for adding geometry. Let's say that I want to have a crown molding here. I can come here to create, and I can say that I want it to be a sweep. I'm going to say that I'm going to pick the path of this guy, and that guy. And then all I have to do is say, okay, and now we're going to do the profile. Now, I'm going to give you a little spoiler, because I'm sure that some smart cookie is going to point this out in the comments. There is a better way of doing this crown molding here. You don't need to do the sweep. In fact, sweep is a very inefficient way of doing a detail like this, but For this video here, for this exercise, I just want to show you like the possibilities of the interactions between model in place component and Revit existing geometry. So you can have the best out of both worlds. You can have your model where the simple parts are made in Revit and the complex parts are made using model in place component. Just keep in mind that when you're doing something like this, because the model in place component is so intrinsically linked to the wall itself, you could have some problems. Let's say that I'm going to pick and I'm going to try to move this guy. See how it didn't let me? Oh God. Ugh. It's getting hella cursed. So keep in mind, if you are creating a model in place component that is directly related to the geometry in your model, you want to be careful to make sure that if you need to make any changes to that model in place component, that it is taking into consideration that model that it started from. See, like for example, if I pick this wall and I move it here, the sweep kind of seems to know what to do, although not really. I think it's going to delete it. And then these guys completely lost to the ether. So this is why it can be a little bit complex to work with model in place components. And this is also why I usually recommend to break things into parts. So I'm going to show you, for example, I'm going to come back here to my model in place component. I'm going to come back. Oops, I'm going to come back. Stop it. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to select these profile because I'm lazy. You'll see. I'm going to go Control C. I'm going to delete it here. There you go. And what I can do here is I can make another component. So I'm going to make another model in place component that is going to also be walls. And is going to be called, I don't know, curved wall niche. Right? And then what I'm going to do, where's my work plane? On the floor, perfect. I'm going to make a void extrusion. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to say paste. Ooh. To pick level? Sure. This. There you go. Perfect placement. So that I don't have to do the whole thing from scratch. Let's put it here. Let's put it there. Once again, it's not interacting, but I can force it to interact. And the difference is that because now this guy, so I'm going to show you here. The difference is because this guy now is its own component and then this is another component, what should happen here is that it should be easier for me to deform things and everything to follow. Oh, it's not gonna. Ooh. Oh no, well, it is there, so I can just manually move it. Oops, I need to have it. Oh, it's not showing. Let me drag it down a little bit just so I can see it in the floor plan. There, that should show. Yes, because I can come here and say, fine, you're going to go MV and I have to move you manually. Hate that, but I can make it work. You can always make everything work. It's just going to be very annoying. And again, see, I have to come here and say, you are supposed to interact with that guy. Oh, it's a little bit inside. That's why it's not interacting properly. Tab, tab. There you go. Maybe if I put you a little bit like that. There you go. Now it's cutting. So it can be a little bit problematic when you have these geometries interacting with each other. Not so much for the setup, but if you want to make any changes. But that does not mean that it's impossible. And again, the point here is just to demonstrate how much more complexity you can add to your geometry using model in place components when the default options of Revit are insufficient. That being said, little caveat, put a little pin on it. There are better ways of doing this, and we're going to see them in the future. But with that, we have reached the end of this video. I hope you like it. I hope you find it helpful. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to add them in the comments. Also, feel free to give it a like, maybe subscribe. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for sticking through, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.